Hello, everyone. Frank Morano here. I hope you had a delightful weekend. I certainly did. I got to go to Coney Island, which is always a treat. I want to talk about an appointment at City Hall that probably isn't getting a ton of attention, but it should because it could have a very real impact on what gets built in your neighborhood. Mayor Mamdani has nominated John Mangin to chair the Board of Standards and Appeals, or as we call it, the BSA. A lot of people who've dealt with them just call them the BS, but a little humor. Now, I realize the words Board of Standards and Appeals aren't exactly going to stop you in your tracks, but this is an incredibly powerful agency when it comes to zoning. The BSA hears appeals and can grant variances that allow property owners and developers to do things that otherwise wouldn't be permitted under the zoning rules. And because of changes approved by voters last year, which I voted against and urged you to vote against as well, the BSA now has an even bigger role in certain housing decisions. So, who runs this agency matters a lot. And the mayor has chosen John Mangin. I don't think he's the right choice at all. I'm going to be opposing his nomination, and I want to explain why. First, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this guy doesn't know land use. He does, better than I do. He's a Yale trained lawyer. He's spent years at the Department of City Planning. He's worked on housing and zoning policy for a long time. He's taught land use law. He's written extensively about these issues. So, my problem is not that he's unqualified. My problem is his philosophy. Mr. Mangin helped develop the city of Yes. He also served as policy director for the Charter Revision Commission that came up with last year's ballot proposals that took some land use authority away from the city council and reduced the role of elected officials and the public in the process. And if you go back and read things he's written over the years, there's a pretty consistent theme. He's criticized what he called wealthy homeowner cartels. He's been critical of community benefit agreements. He's argued that the land use process gives too much power to people who oppose development. He's entitled to those opinions. I'm not questioning that. There are plenty of smart people who probably agree with him. But here's where I have a big problem. The person chairing the BSA shouldn't come into the job viewing homeowners or local elected officials or people who show up at a public hearing as obstacles standing in the way of development. The BSA isn't supposed to be a rubber stamp for developers or for City Hall. It's supposed to call balls and strikes. If you're a homeowner on Staten Island and you've worked your whole life to buy a house, you pay your taxes, you follow the rules, and suddenly somebody wants to put something completely out of character next door to you, I think you have every right to speak up about it. That doesn't make you a NIMBY. It doesn't make you anti-housing. It just means you care about your neighborhood. And when people raise concerns about traffic, flooding, parking, overcrowded schools, infrastructure, you name it, or whether a project actually makes sense for a particular block, government ought to listen to them. That doesn't mean the loudest person in the room should always get their way. It doesn't mean every development should be stopped. And it certainly doesn't mean we don't need more housing. Of course we do. But I happen to think there's value, real value, in having community boards, public hearings, and local elected officials involved in these decisions. And I certainly don't think homeowners who care about what's happening on their block should be treated like they're part of the problem. There's also a basic good government issue here. The mayor has every right to nominate somebody who shares his vision for the city, but the city council's got a job too. We're not supposed to just say yes because the mayor sends us a name over. We're supposed to look at the nominee's record, ask tough questions, and decide whether this person is right for the job. That's called a check and balance. And this isn't just Republicans complaining about a Mamdani nominee. Council members from across the political spectrum have raised concerns about this appointment. People who disagree with me on plenty of other things are asking some of the same questions I am. That should tell you something. I've disagreed with Mayor Mamdani before, and I'm sure I'll disagree with him plenty of times in the future. But I'll also work with him when I think he's right. So this is not personal, and it's not about opposing somebody just because the mayor nominated him. I've looked at John Mangin's record. I've read what he's written. I've looked at the politics and the policies he's helped advance. And I just don't think someone with his views about local input is the right person to chair an agency with this much power over our neighborhoods. We absolutely need to build more housing in New York City, but we don't have to shut people out of the process to do it. We can build housing and still listen to the people who live here. We can make government work faster without making it less accountable. And we can have experts making decisions without pretending that the people who actually live in a neighborhood don't know anything about it. That's why, unless I hear something that dramatically changes my mind during this process, I can't support John Mangin to chair the Board of Standards and Appeals. And I'm hoping a lot of other colleagues of mine feel the same way. Thank you.